Howdy folks, today let's talk about the Softears Volume S. I'm actually a huge Softears fan. I have two RSVs, actually serial number 1 of the RSV, and then I have a Twilight. I heard Cerebrus, and I had the original Volume non-S, and I did sell it because it was a little too shouty in the upper mids. But this is an excellent set. Right away I'm going to give it a recommendation. I've heard it for about a week now, off and on. And I don't find any parts of this to be harsh or off-putting. It plays pretty much all of my library very well. It's got our little tuning switch. I just thought I'd talk about some of this stuff on this today and just some overall impressions. So it's got the little, it's actually a copal, a Japanese copal switch, which is an interesting thing. Honestly, they could have just put like a little, like an on-off switch that you can hit with your finger instead of having to put something into this. It's just like a screwdriver type of thing. Anyway, so I think they could have done better with that. Also, the way that these swivel is like completely odd. One side, they both have to be swiveled the same way, but since these are right and left, one goes opposite of the other, and it's weird. Anyway, recessed 2-pin, no big deal. Rather nice faceplate there. Sorry about the fingerprints, but we can see some carbon fiber jazz in there. Really cool. We got a little vent right up here, right here, and you can see some wires in there. There's going to be a crossover. So these have 2 balanced armatures and 1 dynamic driver, and then they say that it has another passive dynamic, but really what they mean, I think, is that the dynamic driver itself has a passive element to it, and sort of, I guess, in the center. In my opinion, what that actually does is it is a pressure relief so that you don't have to have like a front vent on this bad boy, right? Oh, we can see some balanced armature dampers in there. But anyway, so what that pressure relief diaphragm does, in my opinion, is it makes the driver see less acoustic impedance. So it's almost like it's less occluded, less in a sealed tube is what the driver sees. So I've been tuning IEMs for a little while, and one of the things that you really optimally want to do is you want to vent the IEM so that when you put it in your ear, not only do you not get a pressure buildup, but the actual driver itself sees less acoustic impedance, which makes it sound more open, for lack of a better word. That's just basically what I hear. So it's a cool technology, we'll call it, but I don't think it's too dynamic drivers. That's not the way to put it, but it's a really nice passive relief, and I think it's cool technology overall, and I think it works actually too. It's a little bit hard to know what would happen if you were to remove that feature from the volume. Would it have a lot more sub bass or a lot more mid bass? In my opinion, I think very likely, I think it would probably have more mid bass actually, probably quite a lot more, and then that would influence the tuning, and then there'd be issues. Anyway, so this has 2 balanced armatures, 1 dynamic driver with a passive relief in it. The balanced armatures are ED balanced armatures, and according to Softears, they helped develop these ED branded balanced armatures. I believe they're in the RSV, and I'm not entirely sure what else, but I do hear them as being pretty close to Sonyans, maybe kind of a blend between Sonyan and Knowles. But very good, and I like them a lot. They're certainly not Belsings, so just to mention all that. Popped up some graphs. Let's just check that out. Here's our little passive diaphragm thing here, I guess, in the center of the dynamic, which is interesting, and you can see sort of the internal layout. We have so here's the bass driver, dynamic driver, which interestingly looks like the Twilight driver in their mock-ups. I don't know for sure, but it has a bypass vent tube here for the bass. So basically what you're not going to get is a pressure buildup as you put these in your ears, which is a very nice feature. And anything else that matters? Probably not. Just sort of looking. Apparently they have a fairly flat impedance curve for the IEMs, which is kind of, well, actually it's not entirely flat, which is also why the little copal switch on these things can be used to increase the impedance, which then increases the upper mids and treble compared to the bass and sub bass. It's a cool feature. I didn't find that I really enjoyed it in that mode with less bass and more treble. I think it has plenty of treble as it is, or at least plenty of mids and high mids. People argue about whether or not this has enough air frequencies, and I find it to be really rather on the natural audiophile side. So the impedance of these things is 32 ohm or 31 ohm. Wait, okay, mode 1, that has to be with the copal switch, 32 ohm, and then without, probably around 10 ohm. Interesting. And some other stuff. Faceplate is cool. Also, just to mention this, I think that like I did on the original Moondrop variations, I think this backplate is going to be able to come off fairly easily. And you can see like a little gap right there. You might be able to get something in there, pop this off, and screw around with this resistor, basically, which is what this is, to increase the impedance or do something about it. I don't know. Interesting, though, for sure. Also, that bypass vent, you might be able to pop the shell off and change the damper value on the bypass, which may increase sub-bass. Whether or not you'd want to do that is a whole nother matter, but you could possibly do that. So that's kind of a cool thing. Like on a lot of IEMs, right, the back plate is sealed to the shell with glue or whatever they use, ultraviolet glue. And then, so you pop it off and you're going to have to do a bunch of work to get it to look nice again. But in any case, cool. And we see a nice little red balanced armature damper. I think that's, I couldn't tell you, honestly. Usually the mid-range is the white bore there. So this might be, I guess, treble, possibly, maybe? Anyway. So let's check out some graphs real quick. All right, so one of the big things that was on my mind was like, well, let's say I have a device that has, like, say, I don't know, 2.5 ohm output impedance, and then I have some that have 0.5 ohm output impedance. Would that change the frequency curve enough to matter? And the answer is not really. At most, you can get about a 1.5 decibel change between bass and treble. That was using, I think, my X Duo 05 Plus, amplifier. And I actually found that to be quite nice. So if in the stock format you think that these have a little too much bass compared to the mids and treble, or the high mids and treble, then you could theoretically use a device with a slightly higher impedance and maybe get that in the pocket. Like I said, I didn't really like the extra impedance switch. It just it made it a little too bright for me. There's some genres where that might work well on, but overall that's not my dig. So anyway, what I got here is let's see, the last measurement was on that's my X Duo XA10 amplifier. Then I had the purple graph, which is this one. My cursor's over. These don't change much. But the purple graph is actually with my Mo2 Mark V headphone output, which is 0.5 ohm. So that's interesting because it looks to me like it might shave off a little bit of air frequencies. Not entirely sure. I just put the IEMs in the coupler and didn't touch them, just changed devices, so it shouldn't have changed the peaks that much. But interesting. It's about the only graph that really looked much different. So the XA10 is probably around 1 to 2 ohm. Then I have a Aune S15 Pro. That was I think the green graph, this one. So basically, most of these amplifiers sound fairly the same until you get to the ultra low impedance, and then you might have a small difference. Whether or not it's better or not, I don't know. But you get like a little less around 10K and maybe a little more around 16, 15K. Probably ain't going to matter at all. But anyway, so I'll have a bigger review soon talking about genres and things. But essentially, these are an absolute banger of an IEM. The bass hits really hard. It almost has a thuddy quality to it, which, I don't know, that's maybe not the best way to put it, but in my opinion, it sounds a little bit like, the Twilight driver, actually. Just in the fact that Twilight has plenty of mid-bass, plenty of sub-bass, but it's not scooped out or anything like that in the mids. So, like, when bass hits, you do get, I don't know, I'll call it a little bit of a thuddy quality, somewhat. It's got plenty of mid-bass and plenty of subs. And so excellent bass on this. Great bass textures, good separation. The mid-range is absolutely fantastic on these. The ear gain on these is about 10 decibels, right about 3K, which is considered to be pretty well accurate, like as per the meta tunings and things that Critical's done. Let me just flip over to that real quick. So Here's our ear gain, and we're at about 10 decibels from the mid-range right around here. We have a nice, fairly steady slope down. I pretty much hit the 8K peak, give or take, so that's not really there. But then we slope downwards. So the air frequencies are just slightly below the mids, which is actually really, really nice. Has, in my opinion, really nice air. It does have quite a bit of bass, which may mask a little of that right over in this area. But this is typical Softears amazing tuning, in my opinion. And for a really good price, $320, right? I don't know if there's much else to say. Oh, the X factor on these. The X factor on these is fantastic. It really, to me, has an outside the head type of mojo. It has great depth, wideness, height to the sound. So if the X factor was anything, it's got that lush quality to the sound, and and slightly outside the head. So for $320, I mean, this is just really, really good. I actually recommended these to some folks without even hearing them, and they got them and said, wow, you know, they're actually really super good. One of their favorite sets. And for not an incredibly high price, but they're certainly not cheap at all. But in any case, so these do get a recommendation, and I'll flesh out some more of the details of this, but I really like these a lot. Softears knocked it out of the park, and I think some of the other reviews that you'll find online also were quite positive about this. It's not going to be like, you know, probably a top-of-the-line beater for a lot of folks. For me, though, I find it to just be like that sweet spot, excellent mids, excellent bass, lots of air on both sides of the spectrum, both bass and treble, and really nice X factor. Also, just to mention the fit, the nozzle on this is smaller than other Softears, so it's easier to fit by far. I didn't have any problems with it whatsoever. And I did use their ultra clear tips, which, funny enough, they're calibrated, shall we say. Let me grab one. Where are they? Calibrated, in my opinion, like just the right output diameter here, and you know, whatever the volume of air is in front of the bore to really accentuate the treble and the air frequencies. These tips just do a damn good job versus, I don't know, wide bore or foam or anything else like that. So in my opinion, they do super good for these, and you know, if anybody has them, definitely try them out. You know, I know that everybody has their favorite tips, but these work really well with these guys. Well, one bad point is, and sadly, I'll just grab the cable real quick, but these have an enormous amount of noise on the cable. It's fabric coated, sorry. And it's a nice cable. It's fairly supple. It's a little jank in terms of, like, if you kink it, it'll stay kinked and stuff. But nice quality cable, but God, the noise from this thing is unreal. Like, just even rubbing it on anything, like even the part that goes into your amplifier, if it rubs on anything, you can hear it all the way up into the IEM. So this is absolutely not going to be a cable I could use for running around with or doing anything mobile. But, you know, I got other cables and things. So awesome set. I'll just probably give some genre ratings pretty soon. But, yeah, go get yourself a pair of these guys. Get the Softears X Factor in your ears. And, you know, people probably know, but they make really expensive sets in general. And so this is going to be like, is it their cheapest one? Maybe so. Maybe so. And it's also not far off from RSV in overall tonality. So you could almost think of it as an RSV with a dynamic driver, which is completely win. Anyway, talk to you on the next one.